atop the highest point in Douglas, you'll get a bird's eye view of the international border separating the city from Agua Prieta, Sonora, Mexico, once a hotspot for illegal migration and drug trafficking. Agent Dion Ethel heads the Border Patrol station in Douglas.
Traffic across the board is down in this area.
It's way down. In the year 2000, more than 235,000 illegal aliens were arrested here. Now it's down to less than 1%, or about 2,300 arrests.
In the early 2000s, there was very little infrastructure here, and so hence the large volume and numbers of crossers, obviously leading the way in terms of Tucson sector.
This is what the border used to look like in Douglas. Fencing built from Vietnam-era helicopter landing mats. It's low and you can't see what's coming from the other side. This is what most of the Douglas border looks like now.
We now have more than 37 miles of vehicle barrier and pedestrian fencing, which is the vast majority of our area of operation.
Douglas has also stepped up its surveillance.
Cameras, sensors, radar packages, both fixed and mobile technology.
Thanks to those upgrades and agents, Ethel says they just aren't seeing those large groups of migrants.
It takes a pretty stout person to be able to climb and scale that fence. We're not seeing, families and the things of past crossing those areas.
But it's not just this added infrastructure that's been a game changer for crossings here in Douglas, but it's the consequences that come with those crossings.
It was normal business to see juveniles involved in the trafficking of narcotics and people.
Because it can be hard to prosecute teenagers federally, Border Patrol turned to Cochise County and prosecutor Brian McIntyre for help.
We were operating as a training ground for future loads and future scouts. They would be apprehended and then immediately returned with no consequences whatsoever.
Cochise County, one of the first jurisdictions in the state and the country to step in, charging 34 teenagers in the first 6 months of the program alone. That number down to just 2 last year and 0 so far for this year. A teen charged with drug smuggling now faces probation to up to 5 years behind bars.
Everybody talked about how harsh it was, but harsh is the kid that we have pictures of. He lost a load and they took a 2x4 to his entire backside.
The program steering more and more teens away from becoming criminals and pulling more drugs off the streets.
So it's gone to something that was very prevalent to something almost non-existent.
Other areas now turning to Douglas to try and replicate the success they've had here.
I think that's part of the key, is this whole of government approach and continuing our efforts out here and continue to build on what we've already gained.
CBP tells me ultimately the criminal element and smugglers dictate where people cross along the border, many times choosing the path of least resistance, and at least for right now, that's not in Cochise County. I'm Angelica Carrillo for KOLD News 13, live local, late breaking.